All right, let's get into it. And a very big welcome, our Flow engineers, for Friday, the 16th of May, episode 43 we're up to. Great to have you all here for our Flow Friday session. My name is Matt Kesby, and I'll be taking you through. Today is very much an update day. Let's jump into the right screen. Let me do the other screen. The big shout out to Nice, our production manager, who does a great job of feeding me with some of the latest info on what's happening in the world. It's such a fast-paced, moving world with AI, and although we talk about AI a lot, it's really important that we also are talking about business, because when we get together for Flow Friday sessions and we're creating AI agents and automations and workflows, and man, that's about to go to a whole new level. The reality is why we're doing it is to actually drive the potential of our businesses essentially to scale and to help our people to exceed, right? To be prepped with the best new information and constantly upskilling so that they can really outperform beyond what their own expectations are. And I want that for everyone as you move forward. And I certainly know that if you're showing up to these sessions, you're getting yourself prepped for the future. Today I'm coming from home, live here in Bali in Indonesia. I'd love to see you here sometime. Certainly reach out if you're going to be in my neck of the woods. If you have not yet grabbed your free PDF version of the pre-release of my new book, Untangling the AI Overwhelm, make sure you do that. You can go to stan.store/Matt Kesby to access that pre-release PDF version of the book. We're currently in talks with a major publisher who looks like they want to take this on, which is pretty cool. When we do that release, it will be an even further advanced version of the book as well. So make sure you grab a copy of that. Get started, because inside there is the AI Sweet Spot framework. Now, the AI Sweet Spot framework is how we go from really zero to hero when it comes to applying AI at work. And it's not just about the technology, it's strategy and execution, people, and technology. And we put a big emphasis on the people piece because it's our team that are going to leverage the AI going forward. And while many organizations might be thinking that they're going to replace people with AI, the reality is that it's about enhancing everyone for higher value exchange and results delivery. Now, in the news today, you might see that Microsoft has laid off 6,000 workers, despite their business actually hitting they're on a streak of quarterly profits. And the commentary around that will be quite interesting, right? Because it's like, well, why lay off people if the business is becoming highly profitable? Well, here are some of the insights. The tech giant, Microsoft, has laid off 6,000 people of their 228,000 full-time workers. Now, about 55% of those were US workers. So they're doing it globally across the world, but majority being in the US. Now, why is that? Well, one portion will be high labor costs. That's one portion that you could infer from that information. The changes, the layoffs are happening across all levels, including management. And the CFO came out to say, we continue to implement organizational changes necessary to best position the company for success in a dynamic market. The markets in every industry are moving. They're very dynamic at the moment. And so businesses are going to look to how they reposition their organizational charts, their mix of workers as a result. And certainly as positions change, they evolve because of the use of AI. We're going to see some things like a confluence of roles. That's where we have two roles starting to merge into one or even three, because the AI tool sets are going to allow people to actually innovate more than they have before. They're going to be able to do more than ever before. And as we move from essentially the knowledge worker age into the innovators age, where tools like REA Pro will help an individual to innovate more within their role, have more control, we're going to see even more of this shift occurring. It's those that are taking on the high adoption of the AI tools that will find themselves propelling forward and not be in fear of these sorts of restructures that occur. Now, Microsoft announced a smaller round of performance-based layoffs in January. So they've already started doing this in January. They've continued it again, which will happen essentially in June, July, where this extra 6,000 people will be laid off. Now, although this is only 3%, so this is the biggest, they said, but the 3% cuts will be Microsoft's biggest reported layoff since early 2023, when the company cut 10,000 workers, which was almost 5% at that point in time of its workforce, joining the other tech companies that were scaling back post their pandemic era expansion. So there was all this expansion that occurred with the pandemic era, especially for technology companies and SaaS, when people moved to working from home and they were retooling. But then post-pandemic, they realized, well, either they weren't getting the results and the efficiency, and so they did some major cuts there, 5%. So this is a super interesting time because the Microsoft has been exceeding Wall Street's expectations in their earnings. So they're doing really well, but that doesn't mean that businesses will sit around and accept low performance, which is really what this comes to. Here's the words from the CFO again, that the company is focused on building high-performing teams and increasing our agility by reducing layers with fewer managers. So we're going to see this smaller, tighter teams who are highly skilled, highly impactful, and are able to deliver high levels of results because they're utilizing the latest technologies. Now, when we look at any business, what we're going to see is the bell curve of performance. And when people in organizations are appraised, this is what organizational development teams look at. They look at the bell curve. They're looking for where is the low 10%. And this is what happens in the low 10% of workers is coached and subject to termination. And we're going to look at the reason why and the impact in a moment. Then you get naturally the top 10%, who are the high performers, who quite often are doing 300 or 500% output compared to low performers. And then you got the mean, the average, and that's where you've got moderate impact. You might see from a salary expectation, they might match inflation when salary increases occur, but it's the top 10% that get the majority of the share of things like salary increases and bonuses and so forth. And that's naturally, very objectively, that happens because if you're delivering more, your value exchange is higher. So the salary movement happens at that top 10%. Now we're actually entering a really interesting world right now, right? Because someone who previously might have been in this lower zone because they didn't previously have the, let's say, the academic results at university, may not have previously had the experience of others, now can amplify their intelligence, augment how they deliver their results, and rapidly move into the top 10%. We're in a time that those that lean in and adopt are going to be able to become a high performer very quickly. And the game in business is actually about moving the middle. So it's about taking the middle performers up to becoming the top performers. Now, we do that in a range of ways. The engagement and morale are core factors around focused attention and performance. Now, you want to achieve anything in life, the reality is there's two things that need to be done. It's focus and execution. It's those two factors that get you up to being a top performer. Now, we get to amplify that further in the execution by doing the execution to the power of AI. So when you get engagement plus morale multiplied by execution to the power of AI, an individual can rapidly move forward to being in this top percentile, the top 10. Now, if you haven't seen a chart like this before, and what it's showing here is essentially, this is the mean. This is what this means. And this is 1 standard deviation from the mean, 2 standard deviations from the mean, 3 standard deviations from the mean. And when you get from that mean, the average in the middle there, 1 standard deviation either side, that's 68% of the workforce. That's usually acceptable. The bottom 16%, 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations from the mean, that becomes unacceptable. And that there is where a lot of energy and effort goes in the organization and overhead to try and shift a low performer into even just the middle. And that is not going to work going forward for individuals in this new economy, in this innovators age. The underachievers, they themselves are the ones that could actually go all the way up here to being a top performer with the help of AI and automation. But many don't, because they don't have the internal drive. The key though, and where some might have struggled in the past, interestingly, because they didn't have the skill set yet, is that they're going to be able to rapidly move themselves forward, but it will take internal drive. AI won't do it for them because AI doesn't have drive. That's a human trait. And so this here is where, from a coaching perspective for individuals, apart from there's the humanistic factors and there's the technical factors. And the beauty of using AI is that it can actually drive the confidence of an individual up, because as our performance increases, that's progress. And as we progress, we have all the beautiful hormones and neurotransmitters that get released that give us things like dopamine release and for reward recognition, motivation, which helps us to progress forward. And we get that when we see our progress moving forward. And historically, what will happen, and probably even more so in the last 4 or 5 years, is that as a human being, we like to have fun. We like to have a good time, right? So we like to have dopamine released, whether we realize that that's what's going on or not with our neurotransmitters. But we really do like it. Our body continues to reward ourselves. One of the challenges is that we have got these little devices, right? And dopamine gets released every time we scroll on our phone. And that reward mechanism means that we can consume a lot of our dopamine reserves during the day on things like distraction. And but the reason why it's released is because, like, every time you scroll, you get another incentive to scroll more with more information. And one thing I love about generative AI is that, as it produces those results, it can hook us in to being for that dopamine release. And so one of the tricks, the tips, is to if you're in a work or office environment, and let's say you've got lots of people on a long desk together, you're in an open plan office, start the day by walking up to the end of the desk, grab your phones, make it part of your team culture, and put the phone face down on the desk, and you line them all up. And what that signals is high performance, and that, yeah, it's there if there's an emergency, but I'm not going to let it distract me. And as I get into my day, I then open up my AI tools, and I'm going to start utilizing that. Now, one little hack on this is actually to change your browser default page from Google to REA Pro. Change your default page from Google to REA Pro to encourage the use of AI each day. So you're going to start there, you're reminded, yeah, let's get into using it to help us, because the game is to help the team and yourself move through into this top performance zone. Now, why? What's the benefit of that? Well, let's have a look at this from this example with Microsoft, from a salary perspective and an impact on a business. Now, 228,000 employees is a bit too much for our head to get our heads around, right? So let's bring that down to just, let's say, 100 employees. Now, and let's look at an average mean salary per employee of $60,000, whether that's US or Australian. For those in the Philippines, I'm just going to do this in dollars as an example. But the numbers sort of all play out the same relatively, depending on industry and so forth. Let's say you've got 100 team members at $60,000 per annum. That's $6 million in annual salary. Now, if that business is doing about 18 million in revenue, then if it's an SME, profit will vary depending on industry, anywhere from 5 to 10 to 20%, depending on what the industry is. The reality is that most small businesses are on pretty tight profit margins. So let's just call it 5% net profit, and therefore it's $900. Now, let's say the move at Microsoft, which is a 3% reduction in employees, and if they're on that mean salary of 60,000, then that 3% impact means that 3 employees would be laid off or not rehired. Could be the other way to look at it as well, not rehired. That would present $180,000 in available cash to the business. And that means that the net profit has gone from 900,000 to just over $1 million, which would represent them moving from 5% net profit to 6%. Now, this actually represents a 17% uplift in the difference in the net profit. Now, if you're in a role at work and you haven't got into this type of conversation around business before, this is one of your upskilling moments. Because when you can understand that our role as team members in an organization is value exchange and to drive more profitability so that we can deliver upon the mission of the organization and present ourselves better for salary increases, then when you get the game of business, you'll realize why it's so important to jump into this, becoming the top performer and using AI. Now, if therefore the net profit increase per annum would be 180,000, let's say that 50% of that new available profit was then put aside for salary increases, and the understanding that organizations, if people are in the mean, they generally get the, let's say, a CPI increase, that it's the top performers that get the higher share of the increases. And so this would mean that there's $90,000 available. And based on taking someone from the average, the mean, into the high performer, top percentile, that would take them to around about $90,000. So quite a significant uplift. That would mean that there's now available cash in that business for 3 people to move up. So 3% of the organization, 3 people to move up to the highest percentile. Now, look at where this then starts to change. If that was in fact 8%, which is what, if that was 8%, then that would be 8 employees would be the difference. $480,000 in cash would be the difference there. And essentially 8 employees would go up into that highest percentile. I forecast that we're going to see it more in organizations, more around this sort of 16%, which is looking back at the shift curve here. It's the 2 standard deviations from the mean, that bottom 16% of low performers are actually the ones that are consuming most of the coaching and support time to bring people forward. So the reason I point this out too is that when we are if we're ever in the mean here, in this section here in our performance, there's and you've got low performers around you, what happens is that the medium, mean, and even top performers will get drawn down by low performers. The low performers are often the ones, they're not focusing on their work, they're distracting other people, they're not knowledgeable, so they do things like turn to the person beside them and say, hey, how do I do this thing? And as a result, it interrupts their day. And as McKinsey & Co tells us, 19% of the week, so let's call that 20%, one day of the week, is wasted on people asking questions internally. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I find these things? And just that one issue alone can be reduced significantly by ensuring each team member has their own AI agent that's grounded in the processes and procedures of the business and their role specifically, so that rather than needing to go to someone else, they can ask the AI the question and the answers can come out. Now, naturally, to do that, it requires us to get our documentation really clean. We need to be writing our procedures, writing our handbooks about the way we do things, getting that documentation to help someone who might be an underachiever to get up into the mean, and to help the people who are in 1 or 2 or 3 standard deviations from the mean in the higher performance to have more time to focus on further improving in performance as well. So this is really for all businesses to get onto the importance of having an AI agent specifically at the role for each team member to be able to reduce the distraction that occurs in the business and increase the performance. Now, so that really is a big game for any individual who's a team member in an organization. It's also a really important game for all senior leaders to be looking at how do we help to further benefit our team members who are the high performers, and to look at overall performance and create the environment to help people get up. So, you know, it isn't, I'm not saying tomorrow go and slash all the underachievers. I actually think the better game is to move these underachievers up the curve, but putting some real structure in place around the support with AI training, upskilling, so that they can get there. And I know that you're going to do that because you're on these sessions. Now the next phase after that, that's from an employee perspective and driving top performers. Now, when we have, and now this next slide is my prediction in business, that by leaning into amplified intelligence within our organizations, we're going to see business valuations increase. Now, a business is valued on its growth curve, like its growth trajectory, how well it's been consistently growing, its profit margin, that's the major one that is looked for. But profit is not enough. If it's profit, but the growth is declining, the valuation of the business decreases. If the profit's there and the growth is increasing and the profit's increasing, the valuation of the business increases. As James Clear says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And so getting our systems in place is one of the main differentiators of business valuation. It's a main differentiation of how people can become top performers, because you've got consistency in an organization. And in business valuation, we're also looking for high-performing teams. And now here's the prediction that business valuation will end up becoming highly dependent on high-performing AI agents that are supporting the team. Business valuation, I'll say that again, is going to become very dependent upon high-performing AI agents that are supporting the team. And I emphasize that because in a moment, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek onto REA version 2.0, which is just been released internally to some of us. It'll go to all Go team members probably in the next sort of week and a half. And then we'll be releasing out into the market maybe end of May, but by June 5, we'll definitely be releasing version 2.0. So I'm going to give you some insights to that. You've seen this slide before, this next one. This is the game right now. Where can you get the biggest foundational impact for your organization in preparation for the use of agents? It's actually in getting clear on the documentation of your systems, processes, procedures, and steps, that align to the most important metrics in each department. So if you don't have metrics in the departments, you can't measure and show progress. And for any individual, if you want to see your career increase, it comes from the metrics. It's showing the performance movement. It is not by just saying, I worked really hard or I showed up at work each day. I was on time and so forth. No, it's actually in the metrics. You got to show up early and continue learning, do all those things, but it's in the metrics. And by getting the metrics clear and showing your contribution to creating documentation on systems, processes, procedures, and all those steps and getting the clarity, that's where you have your value driver. And so any point in time where the moment that you go for a doom scroll for dopamine release, replace that with saying, what could I document today that's going to help propel us forward? And then how can I add that knowledge to an AI agent? All right, that takes me on now to REA version 2.0. And what we're about to see come out, we're going to see workflows and automations. Now, automations have been in a very controlled release to a few. What we've been working on is making this easier. Rather than having two tools, a workflow tool and an automation tool, we're actually bringing that through into one tool that is much easier and probably way more familiar for everyone who's been using the current workflows. Also, amazing breakthrough from Regs is to be able to add any tool, so any software as a service application that has an API in as a tool to REA Pro via a no-code approach. Now, you'll need to be a little bit of technical understanding for that one, but it is very learnable. We will also be focusing over the next 3 weeks, two and 3 weeks before we do that. Let's call it the June 5 release. We'll be adding not just tens, but I think by that stage, hundreds of SaaS tools in there so that our agents can actually access the tools and start to have real agency. And in a moment, I'm going to show you that, but also a real breakthrough that is available in version 2 is the ability to train agents with transparency, and you don't need to be a machine learning expert to do this. Now, this will be the differentiator in business in how intelligent your agents are and how effective they are in supporting you in the work that you're doing. And the beauty is that everyone will be empowered to be able to train their agents further on a daily or weekly basis. And then the final one, which is just experimental, Regs and I were on very late last night, and he was showing me some insights to this. And that is where we can have single agents with Agentic. I should put superpowers. Now, Agentic is where, if anyone's seen any of like the vibe coding platforms out there, like a Lovable or a Bolt New, or if you're a developer and you're using Cursor, that's actually an agentic framework that's helping the AI to write the code. It's where the agent that you're talking to actually has its own agentic process or other agents behind it that takes it through, when you put the request in, the prompt, it then goes through a process to understand the question or the prompt that was delivered. It creates a plan. It then does the work. It then reviews the work that was done against the plan, and it can then replan if necessary before then giving the result out. And so the single agent with an agentic power that is in each of our roles specifically becomes incredibly powerful. And in REA version 2.0, these agents will be able to have multiple tools available to them as well. So imagine that you're in marketing, let's say, and you need your agent to have access to Instagram and Facebook and the CRM and so forth and so forth. All those tools would be available to a single agent. So when you ask a request, it's going to be able to present a plan of what it is going to do and what tools it's going to access, and then you can approve that and it can go off and actually execute the work. What will also happen is the agents will have even more than just the tools. They'll also have access to the workflows and be able to then execute those workflows as well. And of course, workflows are turning into the fully detailed automation. So let's have a little sneak peek at REA. Who wants to see a sneak peek of REA version 2.0? Put a 1 in the chat if you want to see a sneak peek. Let me see the chat there. Part of what your future world looks like. I've lost my chat controls. I've got some. Yeah, okay, lots of ones. Fantastic. All right, we've got the right crew here. So here's where we're going. Giving everyone superpowers with an amplified intelligence with REA 2.0. So what you'll notice probably first of all is a very clean look about REA, and that we're really going for a super clean enterprise look in the new version. We've got chat like we're used to. Now, there'll be some features in version 1 that you don't see here yet, but they're coming in. We've been more focusing on the advanced features and creating it more modularized so that we've got more flexibility for use cases in the future. So many of the things that you're used to, the ability to select agents, probably one of the major changes in here that you won't see up front, but it's behind the scenes, is the ability to work with images has changed significantly. It has previously, we would need to OCR an image before we would then push it off to the models, but now it's in full multimodal capability to be able to handle that. And also, when we're uploading documents here, let's say if we're uploading a document, it's not just RAG that's being used, retrieval augmented generation. We're also using CAG, cached augmented generation. And the benefit of that is that when we use retrieval augmented generation, we put the document in, it then needs to be parsed, chunked, and sent to the vector database for the AI and the machine learning to access that information. But sometimes we need to move faster. And so cached augmented generation, or CAG, means that the system will actually access that first while it's waiting for the vector store to catch up. So there's some real speed increases available as a result when you're in this sort of fast flow moment when you're working with the agents. Creating agents has got an upgrade as well. And so when it comes to creating a new agent, there are 2 approaches. You can continue with the legacy builder that you probably all know and love, right? Where we put in the name of the agent, the goal statement, the backstory and the description, and then you start to get into things like the tonality and so forth. That's all still available to you. However, the new approach actually gives you more control and greater ease, believe it or not. And so if I said, I want to create an agent that can search the, and we'll put voice in here as well, naturally, search the internet and conduct research. And we can use AI to further enhance that particular prompt. But here, what's happening is previously in the old builder, I better be right, I'm doing a demo on, and it didn't play out for me on the test. When here it goes. There we are. In the original builder, there's a whole range of different smarts in the background that we're prompting that you don't know about to make all that happen. And that actually also impacts the agent itself. Now, in the new version, it's kind of, you've got the control of what a software developer has in the new version. You've got deeper control over the creation of the agent, which goes to this importance of being able to make the agent smarter, more reliable, more consistent, more control as you refine them to get the outputs. And what we also displaying here is that when the agent is created for the first time, you can immediately start testing it out. Now, this will be a little bit of a brain change movement for everyone who's already created like 20 or 50 or 100 agents, right? Because you're so used to doing it the original way. This is now us upskilling to the new approach. Now, there's our agent ready for us to interact with so we can test it out. There are 4, and soon will be 5 menu items across the top here. There's 4 at the moment. There's train, which I'll come back to, details, knowledge, and tools. Let's have a look at details, because the details section is like your the current approach when you build and you do goal statement, backstory, and instructions. Here we can see that these have automatically been created. The slight difference now is that we're going for name, description, and instructions. And this will allow you to prompt further. We're going to give you more tools in here as well around reprompting these and so forth. But the beauty of this is really about control. And Ryan's got a question. Can it have a default prompt template form that the agent can have asked to complete before proving information? I might have the answer to that in a slightly different way in just a sec. So, but I want to make sure I answer your question fully, Ryan. I think I need to understand it deeper. But let me show you the next parts. The knowledge, which we're all familiar with, that you can put the documents in there. You'll be able to upload and connect. At the moment, this is pre-launch, but when it's launched, you'll get access. It'll connect to all the external services like we currently have, and then tools. So and the tools are going to become very advanced because you're going to end up seeing hundreds in here. And so let's say we were to do Google search and add that as a tool. With those tools, we then have the account. It's important in business that you might have agents for different team members that are connected to different accounts, because you might have restrictions on what's usable on those external tools, because some tools have got costs associated with APIs running, and of which you can, in this new version, you can set limits on and so forth. But where it gets really interesting is in the agent training space, where we're going to be able to continuously train this agent. So, for example, you'd say, please never answer any questions outside of finance. Let's say this was a finance agent, was specifically for finance. Now, that the instruction has been sent to the agent, and the agent has replied with, I've noted that I must never answer questions outside of finance. If you have any finance-related queries, feel free to ask. Okay, so we've just given it that instruction. Now I can come over here and say, can you please give me a recipe for making a hamburger? Now, what the agent's doing is also referring to its brain, its knowledge base. I'm unable to provide a hamburger recipe, but you can find great recipes through Google search link, right? Because we gave it a Google tool, so it's given us the link. So we're able to train the agent what it can and can't do, and test it immediately as well. Now, AI is generally a black box, right? You don't really know what's in the LLM and what it's behaving. However, in this approach with the knowledge, whenever we train, see this little brain icon here, it's going to have all these memories that we've given it in its training. So you can go in there and say, oh yeah, I must never answer any question outside of finance. But if you made an error on that, then you could always delete that. So you can go back and retrain it. Now, where this gets crazy exciting in the near future is that you'll be able to load up all the knowledge to that particular agent, and then it will be able to, this is a future state coming, it will end up being able to benchmark against itself. It's going to consume the documentation. It's going to write, you could say, like write maybe a range of 400 questions, and then assess itself against that. And then you'll be able to see how well it scores, and then look at its answers, things that weren't right, you can then retrain it, or you could just run it through its self-training again. This is going to be the differentiator in a business in how effective the agents are because of how much you train them. And if you think about that, it's like in business, our systems and procedures and our documentation, and the ability to run the business with scale, that's the differentiation from one business to another. This new layer is going to be about how we differentiate our agents supporting our team members to being more intelligent and effective. And it's your data and how you train the agent that will be the differentiator. And that's often why if you've ever heard this statement that the value's in the data, the value's in the data, that's where the gold is. This is what's going to bring this to life in a business, because you'll suddenly start to see, right, yeah, it really is. We're training the agents on our knowledge. We're training the agents on our approach, what they can and cannot do. And this now becomes, for every team member, part of your enhanced upskilling skill set. For a very long time, we've all been learning about the leadership of people. That needs to continue. Now it is the leadership of machines. And this is the zone here. Everyone becomes a trainer of their own AI agents to improve the performance of them. This is 100% one of the new skill sets required for an individual at work, is the ability to train agents. And the beauty of it, you don't have to be a machine learning expert to do the training. You're going to be empowered to do this within all the work that you're doing. Okay, so how powerful this is and where it's going, we're just scratching the surface. And the ability to then look at, especially when we get to agents that are taking actions for us, to then get feedback loops to come back in to be able to continuously retrain the agents. All that's part of the future. So it's a wildly exciting world ahead. Now, the next one is our workflows. So our workflows by default is just the straight workflow. And the new automations approach is where you've got lots of variables and software, and it can stop and have human in the loop moments, and it can interact with all sorts of software systems over longer periods of time and be automatically triggered based on different actions in business. What we're doing is bringing those two together in a very similar interface that everyone's quite used to. And what you'll see is actually there'll be two options here. The first one is built from scratch, and the other one's pretty wild, but it's not ready yet. And that is where you'll be able to build a workflow from a prompt, and it's going to go off and actually build the workflow and the agents all out for you automatically. And that's really going to change our Flow Friday sessions quite significantly. But creating a workflow would now start here by adding a node. And we've got a range of options for us, things like triggers, the agents, tools, data transformation, flows with things like branching and logic, and then core nodes where you're looking at things like HTTP requests and webhooks to be able to give you maximum flexibility. That is really heading us down into like the AI automation integration engineer zone once we get into there. And But there's, we've got more training coming around that in the very near future. But let's say we started with a trigger. It could be things like a chat trigger or a manual trigger or a scheduled trigger based on time. And then we'll also put an event trigger in. I'm just going to put a manual trigger in for a starting point. And so this is our canvas now for creating our workflows. And you click on the plus sign to add your next node. And with this, let's say I could add an agent as an example. Just put a research assistant in, so I can put the research assistant in. And what will be very familiar is that when we click on that node, is that we've got details and then we've got advanced and output. Now, we've already given this particular agent a tool previously, so it's got a tool associated with it. In the NIF, we'll add in tools in here as well, so that's familiar. We can put the prompting in there. We can have the advanced items, like you could change the label, you can select the model, you can activate the knowledge search and web search. But you can also have some control over temperature, which is how creative that agent's going to be. And so rather than that being baked in, which is what it previously has been, you'll be able to control that temperature as well. Then it's got frequency penalties and presence penalties as well, which we'll go deeper in another session. And then you can actually be able to test the output in these and display them either as markdown, which is what we're used to in our standard flows. We see the markdown view like it's in a word processor view, but you'll also be able to get the JSON and the schema output as well. And that's going to be really useful when we get into these really advanced workflows that are interacting with different systems. And we can also put in tools as well. So if we were to put in like scraping, if we're going to scrape a website, that tool could do that. Now I've got to activate an account. Thanks, JB. I'll take yours. You could put the URL in that's going to scrape. And as an example, and there's advanced options in here like maximum retries and execution timeout. So depending on what the tool is, the advanced options in there, and then the output as well. So, and there's markdown and so forth on there as well. So, and where you'll be able to run each step and see the outputs. And then this little bit here, insert variable, is where the information from the previous step, all that information will be available then as variables to then insert at the next step. So you're going to get even greater control over what an agent can do at each step. Now, this is definitely taking us a leap forward from where we have been previously with our workflows. And so there'll be a lot more detailed training on this. Another thing that's quite interesting too is that we no longer need to be reserved to just a single workflow, a single process. We can actually, and still in testing and still some adjustments on this, but we'll be able to do things, for example, like in parallel, so that we can run the information. Now, what we're working on is if we're then bringing that back into a single point, we need it to stop and wait for the completion of the previous step. But lots of advancements there. And then things like branching and flows, like if you get this response, then here's what I want you to do. If you don't, then I want you to do something else, is going to become very powerful. Just like we do as human beings, right? We get a bit of information, and based on what we get, we take a certain action, or we need to take a different one. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second, check some of these questions coming through. So I'll go back a little bit. Ryan, I might have to talk to you offline to understand about your prompt template at the agent, to have that completed, to understand that better. Jan Scott, do you have a citation for the questions asking? B wants that too. So I need to defer to regs about citations. Anthony said, is the speed of response likely to be quicker? And yeah, and we've got fingers crossed. We're working on speed as well, right? So you got both. Now, in some cases too, uh, like in a workflow, you might trade off some speed for agentic actions in the background, so you can get a higher quality outcome. But naturally, we want everything instant because that's where we've gone. But certainly for general chat interactions, yes. Huge breakthrough, very exciting. It's very intuitive, game changer. Thanks, Anthony. Kenin's amazing. All right. So how does REA 2.0 treat existing agents we have built? So all of your agents are going to come across. And with that, the agents are the same as what they were before. And so you may want, you're going to get all your agents across and workflows and so forth. Workflows we might have to look at. We'll certainly be releasing a lot of workflows to help you as well as part of the process of the new version. You also see there's all these new onboarding to access more agents and workflows and so forth. That's already starting in version 1. Then what I would encourage most to do is that you look at your current agent and write a new agent, and then compare the two in its performance, and then start getting into the training of your agents. When does this update go live? Currently, so 5th of June, we're launching our AI integration consultant certification, and there's a webinar coming for that on the 5th of June. So we're doing it in alignment with the new consultant certification. Yes, for those that have been talking about it, we wanted to do that at the end of April, but we're aligning it to the new release. Access to Google Business Share Drive. Now, I thought that had been resolved. So I'll take that offline with the team. Would that scrape all links of a website? The challenge with scraping all links is that you can get a lot of data that you don't need, and you can end up wasting a lot of tokens. So we'll look into that if that's what people want, to scrape an entire website. But you've got to be careful just how much you might be scraping is the challenge. And if you've then got, just to consider that. Can an agent have a prompt template without a workflow? So as when you interact with the agent, it begins with providing the prompt template form. Yeah, I love that idea. We will make sure we get that in there. Yeah, or selected links, Anthony. Yeah, I think being able to select multiple links is an important part of it. And so when you're interacting with it as you build the workflow and then you're interacting it with the chat, to be able to put in multiple links to scrape, we'll make sure that we get on to testing that as well. Probably the bit that even though this is going to be wild, right? What's possible here, but this other future piece too, which is where an agent can have multiple tools, so that it can. Now, if anyone's seen things like or heard about MCP, Model Context Protocol, that is out there on the internet, it's really blown up with popularity. Model Context Protocol, MCP. Just a couple of quick words on MCP. We've been going backwards and forwards a fair bit on whether to put MCP in or not. One of the reasons is that, well, there's 3. It's a new standard. It has security issues, and it uses a lot of tokens when you don't need to. And as a result, the better implementation is tool calling and just being able to give all the tools. The bit that's made MCP exciting is that it's been able to get access to more tools a bit faster. What we've done, or what Regs and team have done, is actually build out these 2 steps in here, which is providers. So you might see like Google, and then the tools, where you can actually add your own tools. But you're going to see a huge library of tools in here in the upcoming weeks, or when you get access. And basically, and this will be a bit complex unless you understand APIs and authentication. For most, you won't ever have to worry about this. but we'll be building out these tools. It means it's super fast for our team to add new SaaS products in here and new tools. And then what we'll be doing many sessions on is creating a specific role-based agent that has access to a range of tools that are specific for that particular role, so that you can interact with it in your daily life, ask it questions, it can go off and do the actions and execute on those tools without having to build a workflow, which is really powerful. And so we'll start to really look at these 4 treatments of AI agents: the single agent with agentic powers, the workflow, the multi-agent orchestration with agentic powers, and then these advanced workflows as well. Whew, all right, so a bit of an update. Last and final piece for today is to ask the question, hey, is this AI thing a fad? Well, I think if we're here, we know that it's not. And interestingly, thank you, Nice, for sending this one through to me earlier this morning. Accenture actually just posted. Now, if you don't know who Accenture is, Accenture, they're the world's largest outsourcing organization. They do consulting, people outsourcing, and technology. Over 700,000 employees, huge organization. Accenture's generative AI bookings rise to $1.4 billion in Q2 alone. Accenture's generative AI bookings total 1.4 billion in Q2, which is up from 1.2 billion in the last quarter, signaling sustained momentum in the AI space. 32 of their clients alone have got quarterly bookings of over $100 million. And so this is this is an insight to the fact that enterprise are investing very heavily, and the SMEs don't have access to Accenture-like approach, but you do with us, especially with what's coming next as well. And so in alignment with this is many organizations are going to need some help with consulting and implementation of AI agents and automations, and really just break through this next step in their organization. So June 5, we are launching officially, we've finally locked the date in for the new AI and AI agent and automation integration consultant certification. It will help businesses, the consultants are there to help businesses to find their AI sweet spot and implement the framework. And we have a whole framework for the consultants as well, so that they can win in their life as a consultant and get the support they need. It is an incredible support program with AI automation engineers supporting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, releasing advanced templates every day of the week, so they can use those with their clients as well. So if you're interested in becoming a certified consultant, you might do that to create revenue, or you might do it just so you can have these superpowers in your own organization. That program will release over $250,000 in value per annum in the advanced templates and automations that we'll be releasing. It is an incredible program. More on that on the webinar on June 5. We'll have next week, we should have the sign-up links for that webinar, so you can come and check it out. But right now, what I encourage everyone to do is, if you haven't done it already, please access the pre-release of the new book, download it. Oh, and one more. We've got a link for our new Facebook page for Multiplai Academy. Do you have that? It's nice that you can share in the link as well. If not, we'll email everyone after the session. It's a brand new page, so it doesn't have the pretty URL yet. So the new Multiplai Academy Facebook page is out. There'll be lots of updates on the Academy side of things. In the Academy, we'll also, from post June 5, we'll be releasing new courses, facilitated sessions available for your organizations, both online and in person. A whole host of extra info coming through Multiplai Academy, and you can stay up to date with that information via the Facebook page. Well, thanks everybody. You are now up to date, and it is right on time, 1 minute to go. If we haven't answered any questions, let's make sure that we get back to everyone individually. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing weekend. There's so much potential and growth, and it's all about how you lean into to AI. So Flow engineers, you've got this. You're exactly where you're meant to be. And I look forward to seeing you next week, where I'll be in Manila, coming to you live from Manila next week. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. See you soon.